I wish I had more time. You'll see at the end, you'll have more questions than time. As you know, the idea of using drones for laboratory specimens is a new thing. And I got into this, I was telling Anna yesterday, I got into this because of a discussion with a medical student. I was trying to help. A medical student from a different university, University of Michigan, got my email somehow. And he wrote me to say, oh, I have this idea of using drones to deliver medicines in India. And people tell me that you're interested in international work, so maybe you can help me. And I thought, this is such a stupid idea. Who would want to? Anyway, he was very organized. He had a 2-page proposal and everything. So I read the proposal, and I thought, oh, maybe this could work. And so I started doing my own research. We met, and then fast forward, we ended up doing the first project together, published. He dropped out of med school to start a drone company. So the whole thing is, and I became the lab medicine drone guy. So it's, interesting story all around. So this is just a side. One of the hats I wear is I'm part of Pathologists Overseas. For those of you that are interested in overseas work, please visit our website. Tony Badrick, who's sitting here, and the RCPA in Australia have supported us a lot with donating EQA materials. So thank you. All right, so drone definitions, types, and characteristics. So first question is, what is a drone? So a drone, for the purposes of this talk, is a small unmanned aerial vehicle. And I put a truck there to show a lorry, to show the difference. So first of all, it's small. And you can see my partner here is Jeff, he's an engineer, and we work together. He works on this full time. We work together at Hopkins. And you can see the drone is about the height of his torso. Unmanned is obvious. So one of them has a driver on board, and the other one doesn't. And one is the aerial system. So it's a small unmanned aerial system. And there are different types of drones with different capabilities. So on the left, we have the fixed wing. Is the red the pointer? Let's try. Okay, good. The fixed wing, and you can see it looks sort of like a plane. And the advantage is it has a long range, but it cannot take off or land vertically. The helicopter-type drone can take off and land vertically, but has a much shorter range. The way I think about it is you can fly a plane from here to China, but you can't land on top of a building. But a helicopter can land on top of a building. So that's the same idea. But of course, and this is the one we would prefer because most hospitals are not built with a football field to allow drones to land. So you kind of want this. Multi-rotor is like a helicopter on steroids. It's very stable. This is the one they use for shooting movies. So again, the ability to take off and land vertically is very desirable, but it does not go very far. And then a hybrid is a new type of drone which has come out, which combines qualities of both. And we'll talk about them. This has nothing to do with lab medicine, but it's a question I get asked often, so let's address it. So the question I always get asked is, how far can a drone fly? And I say yes. So it all depends on the drone and also what you want to sacrifice. So about half of a drone's takeoff weight is fuel, whether that's batteries or ethanol or some other fluid, gas, fuel. And you can sacrifice that with payload. So how far it goes sort of depends on what you need to transport, how far you need to go, and so forth. And it's a trade-off, always. And then, okay, as part of the background, I wanted to discuss, you can pull up the video, to give an idea of the kinds of settings where drones would be helpful. This first video is a video we made in Namibia. We were invited, so after the first paper came out talking about using drones for lab medicine, all of a sudden we started getting, pause the video please, we started getting all these requests from NGOs, hospitals, and so forth, saying, "Oh, we really want the drones." It's been a journey for me too, because in the beginning, it sort of, so the medical student came in, and then he's like, "Oh, I don't know how to write an IRB. Can you help me?" So I gave him a draft. This is how you do it. He waited a week, came back. I don't know how to, so I said, okay, I'll submit it, but that's it. So I submitted it, and he's like, oh, I don't know how to design a study. So it was back and forth. So eventually we published the paper, and I was thinking, I'm not sure if this is a fluke or if this is a real thing. And then all of a sudden, boom, there's all this interest from laboratories around the world. It wasn't just Africa, places in Canada, US, so forth, wanting access to this. So this is the first trip where we actually went. This was in Namibia, and we were invited by the Namibian Institute of Pathology to visit this site called Katima. Katima is sort of the regional town, and someone spoke about hub and spoke earlier. So this is one of the spokes. Shookmansburg is one of the spokes, and to see how we can help set up a drone network there. So please, you can play the video. Do we have sound? Oh, no, okay. So Namibia is in the southwest of Africa, of Africa, and we were working in that part of the country which juts into Botswana. It's a delta, so it floods every year. And to get from Katima to Shookmansburg, first you take a car, go into Zambia, get visas, and then do this for about 70 kilometers, and then take another boat to cross the Zambezi River, now going from the other side. And the police heard what we're doing, so they decided to send this guy, who's a police chief, to drive us. And I don't know how they know where the roads, in quote, are through the grasses, but they do. And so finally we land at Shookmansburg. And you can see it's actually a pretty good health center in terms of the quality of the building, and there were solar panels on the roof. So the government has invested some money already. It's just because of the flooding, they can't actually do the last bit, which is provide the services for the people. Then there's a nurse living out there full-time who's getting paid, but they only get pickups of laboratory specimens once a week, or if the weather is really bad, every other week. So this is one flavor of the kind of place where drones can be helpful, and then we can go back to the presentation. The second flavor, again, this is a real-life example. We got a call from a group somewhere in the Middle East. I'm not allowed to use their, but I think this is somewhere in the Middle East, and you can see this is a hospital here, and maybe 500 meters away is the second hospital, but they're separated by a highway. And to get from one to the other takes about 30 minutes. And so this is like a classic example of a place where drones would be helpful. And these types of examples are so common, at least now that I'm sort of aware of it and paying attention to it, where you just need something to hop across a river or something. So, those are two examples for background. So drones are already in healthcare, and these are four examples. So each of these has pretty cool videos online. The first one I'm going to start here is a mosquito control via drone. This is sponsored by the World Mosquito Program, and they were working with a group out in not Papua New Guinea, but one of those islands out there. And the idea is that mosquitoes that are infected with the mosquito that transmits dengue, I forget the name now, but I'm sure you guys know. When it's infected with Wolbachia, it can no longer transmit dengue. So the idea is if you could somehow introduce Wolbachia into the population, this will help. So what they do is you get a population of mosquitoes all infected with Wolbachia and then distribute them by drone into the forests. So that's one way. This was the first paper I saw about drones being used in healthcare, and it was drones help fight certain deadly malaria spread by mosquitoes in Malaysia. The group that did the study was actually out of the UK. I think it was out of the tropical medicine, the big school for tropical medicine there. And they were looking at, they had tagged these monkeys, and they were using the drones to take sort of cross-sectional pictures looking at monkey migration and comparing it to malaria outbreaks in people, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful study. Recently, a group at University of Maryland, which is right across the Baltimore City from me, transported a kidney with a drone, which was then transplanted into someone. I thought it was just a flashy thing for for press, but it worked. It worked the patient's fine, and so it was really impactful. They could interview her afterwards. And then also recently, UPS, the United Postal Service in the U.S., is now using drones to move. They started by moving blood sample in one place in North Carolina, and now they just said they got approval to do this in more places. So drones are already being used in healthcare, but they are not at scale. So the way and why is that? So the way I see it, today we have ambulances, cars, motorcycles, and in the future, drones will be part of that list. But there are three things that stand in the way. One is regulation and public opinion. The second is engineering and infrastructure. And the third is the stability of biologics. So if you put a tube of blood or urine or whatever on a drone, is it stable? And this question is really important because if you think about it, when we put laboratory specimens on a car, the car's environment is generally controlled in terms of temperature. And if that car gets into a crash, there's a steel cage between the specimen and the outside. For a drone, none of those things are true. If it's hot outside, the sample is hot. If it's cold outside, the sample is freezing. And so how do you deal with that? And also, how do you deal with the biohazard exposure of a drone? So that was what I decided to focus on because that's what I do. And so I focused on that, thinking that the engineering part and the regulation part would be easy, but it's not. So I'll tell you about that in a bit. All right, so over the last few years, we've published 4 papers looking at the stability of biologics on drones, and they're all the same approach, which is we take 2 sets of samples that are as identical as possible. One set is driven to the flight field and just held there. The second set is driven to the flight field, and we fly around in the drone. And the details differ from study to study, but this is the basic idea. And then we take both sets of samples to the lab and measure them. So the first paper was we looked at chemistry, hematology, and coag specimens. The second one was micro. The third one was blood products, so FFP, platelets, and so forth. And then in the fourth experiment, we essentially repeated the first, but did long-distance flights. So in this one, we flew for 260 kilometers for 3 hours. In this one, we only flew for, I think it was 30 or so kilometers. So I'm going to show you a video of the tests of the test for the long-distance flights. So this one, I wish we had the sound because you can see that it's so loud. Okay, so for this study, we looked at the impact of long drone flights on laboratory specimens, and you can just read the. And that box is a box that we made. I'll discuss it in a minute. The airfield was on a military base, so we had to get military permission and all this, a lot of paperwork. And you can see he's attaching the small sample cooler with the samples to the drone. And then taking off. It's extremely loud. So if this is actually used in hospitals, we'll have to figure out the noise issue. Yeah. And it was out in the desert, in the middle of nowhere, because currently regulations prohibit flights over people. So you have to do it. Yeah. So this 260 kilometers for you. Yeah. And the box that we put on there it's a temperature control box because we couldn't figure out a way we couldn't buy anything off the shelf that would run run using the drone's power, and also keep the samples cool. So after the flights, we brought the samples back to the lab and measured them. And what we found, you can go back to the talk. What we found that was interesting is temperature control is hard to do on a drone, and it matters. And I don't have to convince anyone in this room of that, but it's something all the engineers overlook. So in the future, in 5 years, when you have commercial people coming to sell you drone services, make sure either you do the validation or that they've done the validation, because it's something they don't understand. So in our studies, we've had problems with the blood gases, which makes sense. We've had problems with potassium if the temperature is not well controlled, and we've had problems with glucose. Because what we did is we didn't spin the samples, because we were trying to mimic how will people actually use this. So we did the phlebotomy, we did not spin the samples, and we put it on the drone, because our thinking was in the future that's how people would use it. And we think the white cells just ate up all the glucose, and so that was a problem. So it's just, we definitely need our input as laboratorians in implementing this. Okay, so engineering and infrastructure. So the way I define engineering is a feature that is intrinsic to the object itself. So in this case, we have a Tesla, and you can see, and a Tesla runs on batteries. So you can see that in the front where the engine would be, there's no internal combustible engine, there's just space, and you can put your travel bag up there if you want. But the Tesla still needs the infrastructure to work. It still needs roads with signs, it still needs all these things, which are beyond the Tesla itself. Okay, and so similar in healthcare. So one more example. So this is a bed from 1911. So beds have been the same forever. But in 1909, Dr. Gatch, while he was a surgery resident, invented the so-called Gatch beds because patients who would have abdominal surgery were getting infections from being recumbent, and so he invented this to keep them upright. And now every hospital bed in the world is some version of this. But this is an example of taking something that already exists and making it functional in healthcare. So for drones, I talked about the different classes. These are 2 drones that you can buy off the shelf as hobbyist drones. But what you can see immediately is there's no space to put samples. So for this one, this is the battery, and so how would you actually use something like this? So what we've had to do, what we've done is customize and redesign it. So this is one of our designs, and you can see that we've created space on top to put what would be laboratory specimens. And so this kind of engineering is still currently required to be able to adopt drones for your hospital or clinic. You would have to do quite a bit of engineering today. As I mentioned earlier, we've also had to build a cargo box to hold the samples cool. So this is for those of you that are into engineering, it's based on a Peltier principle, and it transmits. This is a heat transmission system, and this is a way to plug the cooler box into the power system. You can get things like this off the shelf, but they are designed. They're designed to use like the cigarette lighter in your car or something like that, and they're also too heavy for the drone. So we found that we've had to customize and build them by ourselves. Communication devices are another thing that I thought coming into this field would be just standard. You just buy it, almost like you're going to buy a car. Which color do I like? I'll just buy that one. But in fact, the field of drones is not yet like that. If you want to get into drones, you still have to have an engineer and do a lot of this work. Last but certainly not least, something that we have been working on is the idea of how do you keep biohazards safe on a drone. So we've come up with different designs that are based around the idea of crumple zones. Like when a car crashes, it crumples to save the inhabitants of the car. And we've been doing these tests, and this is just some of our testing. Is we have the sample in this drone, and we have this as the releasing drone, And then we have a third drone making the video. And so this is how we do those studies. Okay, that was engineering. And then last but not least, regulation. So only 57 of 174 countries have any regulations about drones. And most of them are outright bans. And in the US, we have a tiered system where drone flights are banned, except if they are within line of sight, so you can see the drone at all times while you're flying it, and if you're not flying over people. Now, hospitals have to be next to people because that's the whole point. And and if you can only fly where you can see, then you might as well walk there, right? So it's not really. Also, current regulations are based on physical designations, and not really medically appropriate. So I'll give you an example. These blood bags are tested, of course, for infectious disease before they're administered. And these are not. So these are considered potentially biohazardous, and these are not considered potentially biohazardous. Based on that designation, in theory today, you could fly these, but not these. But we all know that in a hospital, these account for 95% of the volume, and these don't. So that's what I mean, that the regulations are really not aligned with the way we use products in the hospital. The good news is public opinion is improving, public acceptance and opinion is improving all the time, and countries are trying to approach this challenge in a logical way. If you search Google hobbies and leisure for drones, this is what you get. Can anyone guess what the spikes are? Yes, it's Christmas. Yeah, it's Christmas. So, in closing, drones are part of the future of healthcare, but to get there, we need to address all these things. I tried to create a framework for how you address stability on a drone, but I think eventually when people adopt drones, they will have to, each hospital will have to do some variety of a stability type experiment themselves. The engineering and infrastructure is not where it needs to be, but it's moving there. The field is moving quickly, but still not where it needs to be. You can't go out today and purchase a drone transport service for your hospital without also purchasing, hiring an engineer. And the regulation and public opinion are still not where it needs to be, but that's also moving forward. So I'll skip that. Thank you very much. Any questions?